And we are live. Welcome to episode 40 of Wicked Connective, how to network with authenticity, smarts, and humor. We are welcoming Jessie Pyne from the Pyne Group today. I'm really excited. So Jessie, tell us about yourself. Tell us about a networking event you went to recently first, and then tell us about yourself.
So it's interesting. I think networking event, like that term in general, has completely changed, at least in my adult life. So I would say that probably one of the best networking events I went to was actually a party this weekend. So I went to my cousin, right? This was weird. So like I go to my cousin's place out in the Berkshires, and she's like, "Oh, we're gonna go to this birthday party over at like so and so's house," and we go to this insanely beautiful house in the Berkshires with this pool, and all of these people are like New York City elite, like authors and creators and designers. And I had some really interesting conversations, and we started talking about, what is the future and how does AI look, and what is, how do we do a documentary, and all of these wild things. And I think what I've realized now is I might be in a bathing suit with my 7 and 9-year-old, but I could be all of a sudden at a networking event. Right? So
Yeah,
it's weird. I don't even know how to define it anymore.
We talk about that all the time on the podcast, about how you can truly network anywhere. We had someone who was like, yeah, I met some guy at a gas station and now we're like best friends and we do business together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's exactly right. I mean, I see this more and more. Like you're talking to somebody and somebody asks you what you do. Actually, I just had coffee with somebody the other day that I met at a dinner party, right? Because we were just, somebody's birthday party and we just met, right? I mean, it's just, I think that's exactly right. It just happens all the time. So, anywhere, that means you've like hit the next level of networking, I guess.
I think what happens is like, so I guess I'll go into a little bit about how the Pyne Group and how that's a dramatic change kind of from what I was doing 18 months ago. Mm-hmm. So 18 months ago, I left JP Morgan, where I was an executive director in Boston. And I really wanted to go out and start my own company. And the goal was that there's a lot of strategy and execution work that folks have a really hard time doing, right? You can have a great idea, but if you can't execute it, it's just that, an idea, right? And there were so many businesses that I interacted with and was just like, you just have to just give it to me. Just let me put my hands on it. Right. And I'll just do it for you real quick. And I realized that that's probably the thing that is my superpower, is that I can come into a situation, having worked with hundreds of businesses over the last 20 years, really kind of figure out what helps them go to the next level. And then instead of giving them like a 600-page report, as like a normal consultant would do, I'd say like, and this is what we're going to do, and I'm going to help you do it. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that has been an amazing time. But what I also realize is that I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I have never worked more hours in my life. So when I think about networking, I have to be very careful not to cast a broad net, because my husband would be very angry and I would never be.
Right. Well, it's so true, though. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's true. It's hard to balance everything. And I know you, it's like, I've been on the sales side of it, where I was working with you, bringing one of your clients in in my previous role. And that's how we got to know each other. And it's so fun watching you just be like, you need to do this. And like, you're on the back and being like, well, if you help them, if you do this for them, I know they'll sign the deal. And like, just the way you get things done. And you just have a person for everyone. You'll call me and be like, oh, I need this. Like, I don't think I have someone. Do you have anyone? And it's like, yes, I have this person. And all of a sudden, we're all doing business together. And Jessie does a great job of connecting all of the points and like a little networking web, but also helping you shoot out from those points too. It's so fun.
Thank you.
How, Jessie, so that's a fascinating point, Amelia, but how did you start to do that? I mean, I worked in a corporate environment and then left a corporate environment, and to me, I felt like I was literally starting networking from like ground zero. Like I was not a networker. I wasn't doing it, but now I do it all the time. It's fun. It's, it sort of happens organically. Like, I don't know, somehow I had like no calls set up in like the beginning of July and ended up talking to 50 people. It's like, it just happens. I didn't even try. But I never did it when I was in a corporate job. So how did you get started doing this magical thing that Amelia just described?
I would say that, and people are like, oh, did you like take a class? I would say my years in college bartending probably taught me the most about how to talk to people, to be honest with you. Like you get to know all sorts of different people from all different walks of life. I bartended everywhere from Boston to Key West, Florida. Mm-hmm. And so talking to people is something that I can kind of do easily. Like I feel fairly authentic and just like the things I say, and I'm not for everybody, you know what I mean? And I don't have to agree with you on something to be able to talk to you about it. Mm-hmm. So when I moved back to Boston from Florida, my cousin was like, hey, you want to be a branch manager at a bank? And I was like, I don't know about that kind of stuff, whatever. And he was like, it's like running a business. You've done that. And I was like, okay. And it's really connecting with your clients. And there was like this idea that it's like you go either into like the management and whatever, or you go into the commercial banking space. And I loved business and understood it and understood how numbers worked, and had a management degree. And so that really, I think I excelled in that because I could talk to anybody and I could talk to them about their business and about, their financial performance, and not with judgment, and in a way where, people could share with me. And I realized that, I had that context to allow folks to say, like, it's okay. Like, tell me what's going on. Like, let's discuss it. So I moved within the banking world, more within business banking and commercial and all of that. And that, to be successful in that, you really have to be able to connect with owners of businesses and CEOs. So I don't know if I'm fearless, definitely not fearless, but I probably should be afraid of more things than I am. I'm deathly afraid of spiders.
That's fair. A lot of people are.
Jeff, so I have a question for you. So how did you go from, like, because I feel like I had this conversation a lot. I have an intern right now and I'm like talking to him about for the first time, like, and how did you go from not having that background to kind of having that be authentic and it's easy for you to do now? I think that's the harder story.
It's an interesting question. And I would say, the first thing was a piece of advice that I know Amelia and Stephen have both heard me share before, that I have a twin brother who is my business partner. And he said to me when I first left my corporate job, he said, do you know all those people that you're worried are going to ignore you on LinkedIn? He said, yeah, they're ignoring you right now. And I think that was like the most valuable advice. And it's funny because I was on a call this morning with a guy whose job, I talk to a lot of job seekers I have sort of two hats that I wear. One's a marketing hat and the other one's a coaching hat. And so I was coaching this job seeker or whatever. And we're talking about this. And he was somebody that my brother had introduced me to. And I said, well, the best advice I've ever been given was, this. And I shared this advice that my brother had given me. He's like, oh, Eric shared that with me. But I think it is a really powerful thing when you start to realize, and I would say it took me, I think I'm still learning the lesson, but it took me a year of doing a lot of things that made me very uncomfortable, and maybe even 2 years of things that made me uncomfortable. It was only 3 months after I left my corporate job where my brother and I started a different podcast, right? And so, like, to me, like, to be live on screen for anything like sounded crazy. And now it's like, here we are on episode 40, like, it doesn't bother me anymore. And to some extent, to your point about fear, it's not that you're fearless. It's that you recognize that you have the fear and you just do it anyway. And I think that's, to some extent, I think when you do what you did, what I did, what Steven's done, and where you just jump off the corporate boat, you're like, you have no choice. So you have to learn to do it if you've never done it before, or if if you have done it before, all the better. Probably the ramp up doesn't take as long. So that's my long answer to your question. But yes, that's how I did it.
Steven, you and I have known each other for a while. And we've had wine together and dinner and things like that. But I haven't really heard, you stepped away from something kind of different, but similar to what I was doing, and went out on your own. And you are, I would say, like a natural networker. You just have this calm way about you where you can just like talk to anybody and it's funny and you're like, here, let me see, you want to eat this, like put this on your plate or like drink this or whatever, you know what I mean? And I'm like, yes, whatever. And my husband would say like, I'm a type A, but like when I'm around you, I'm like, yeah, whatever Steven says, I'll eat that or drink
that's the spirit.
Talk to me about that, because that is a superpower I would love to have. Like you're just so natural in that way.
Yeah, I think that I've been a part of many baby's first escargot stories over my time. But you know, I actually don't know. It's something that I've thought about, or haven't really thought about, I should say. You know, I think growing up for me, it was like just this whole like meat and potatoes. Like literally, it was like 3 days a week you'd have a steak, and you could almost pick like this day it would be this thing. Then it'd be like 1 day a week would be chicken, 1 day a week would be haddock. Because you know, heaven forbid we do salmon. That's this weird pinkish fish. Never do that.
I'm from Canada. We did cod.
Yeah. So it was always the same every week. And then once I was a bit older and I learned how to cook, which I think was around like 7 or 8, and I didn't say cook well, but I could do things.
7 or 8 years old?
Yeah, it's pretty early on that we were cooking. And so then I was able to introduce
my kids, by the way.
There you go. Exactly.
You're like,
no. Well, I was mostly supervised at the time. But no, so that as soon as I learned how to make like macaroni and like some sort of pasta type thing, then that was able to be added to the rotation as well, because my dad was never going to do that. Right. My dad was usually the one who cooked. And so because of all that, for me, I wanted to do something that was not that, right, from a culinary perspective. And certainly getting much more into the different food things, getting into different wines, of course, after I turned 21, you know, like everybody.
I'm sure.
You know, of course.
Your 21st birthday, I'm sure.
You know, I was not living overseas, so I had to wait. But no, I think that definitely getting introduced to that, but then realizing how that had a very interesting social setting, right? So going in and building that into business development, building in the knowledge of wine pairings, those sort of things. You know, yes, there was a tactical advantage, but for me, it was just fun, right? And so, and just doing things, maybe it was a rebellion in a way, I don't know, but doing things that were different than how I'd grown up. For the same reason, as soon as I had the opportunity to do the school trip to, I guess the first year was Costa Rica, second year was Mexico, Spanish class, which was a complete fight with my parents, right? But those are the types of things that just doing things different, living life, seeing things, you know, the joie de vivre, those are the types of things that appeal to me. And I think that I just want to share that with other people as well.
So Jessie, I want to pick up on sort of something you said when you asked me the question and asked Steven the question, which was you mentioned that you were talking to somebody who was relatively new to networking. So we almost always ask this question, but what is your advice? What was your advice? Like, what do you tell people that haven't networked before, that feel uncomfortable?
I mean, I think it really depends on it's different, right? For where you are in your life, your career, the setting, right? Like, and so, you know, at this point, like, you know, networking could be like going out on a boat with a couple of friends. But if you're going into a networking environment and you're newer to it, I think there's this idea that it's kind of like Steven said, like meat and potatoes, right? Like, so you're supposed to talk to somebody for like 2.5 minutes and you have to have your elevator pitch ready and you have to be like, blah, 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 and throw up on them what you do. And be like, here's my card. And you can't even give cards anymore. You have to do the like LinkedIn scan thing, right? Which is like,
don't get me started.
Won't even get me started. I guess I'm old, whatever, man. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, if you can't find me on LinkedIn, like they'll like take a picture of me with their phone. And I'm like, I don't know if I like that. So anyways,
and you have an easy name at least.
Listen, people are
how do you think I feel?
And my name is Jessie. And people always call me Jessica and they always call me Pyne. Jessica Pyne, which is now my alter ego, by the way. It's my super Marvel character. For sure.
I would go with J Pyne.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. It's got to be something. But I think, you know, if you have the ability to prepare and know who's going to be there, right? Or think about like, how did I get invited to this? And based off of the people that invited me to this, why did they invite me? And who do I want to meet that's there? And hopefully get a warm introduction or some way, you know, or know who you want to talk to, right? So I remember there was this CFO that I wanted to talk to at a Boston Business Journal event, right? And I was like, I need to talk to him. Like, I can do so much for this company. Like, like, this is it. Like, they need JP Morgan, like, for all the things, you know, and this is when I worked at JP. And I looked up him and the company and what he looks like. And like, I went with like 4 other bankers, and like bankers, I don't know if you know, like hover in like groups, you know what I mean? Like together, and they sit at the same table. I'm like, please, I don't want to sit at the table. Pull me with people I don't know. Right.
Yeah.
But they were like, da-da-da, and I like in 1 second, like it was a second, and I was in front of that CFO. Right. And I made a meaningful connection, I think, and we got opportunities after that. And then, but also gave them the time to kind of move on to talk to other people. But it wasn't this like 2-minute, like blah, blah, blah. It was like it was probably like a 7 to 10 minute conversation that included other people that walked by that I was like, oh, have you met so-and-so? Because I know them and you should meet them. Right. Yeah. And memorable enough that when I call or when I reach back out, that I've now learned something about not only them, like their company, but also them personally. Right. Mm-hmm. And also confirmed whether or not my assumptions were right, that I would be a good fit. Maybe I wouldn't, you know what I mean? But I also like have a no business with, we'll PC it because I know I'm live, jerks policy. And so, and actually interacting. So I say to folks, like, it's got to be authentic. You know what I mean? Like an authentic connection that you have with that other person. And if you're not authentic with one another, like, that's okay. Then move on, right, to that next 2 minutes with somebody that you actually do connect with and are aligned with.
Yep, that makes sense.
Well, I think that good. Amelia.
I was going to say that's also important advice too, that you knew that someone was going to be there. You had looked at the list, you knew his company, you knew him, and you were going there with the purpose of trying to make that connection as well. And I know Stephen talks about it a lot, is trying to, and I do it as well. If I can get my hands on a list beforehand, I like to go through and say, I know these people great, so I can say hi to them. But who else is going to be there, and make a point to look for them in the crowd and say, oh, and sometimes it is as simple as, oh, I've been following you on LinkedIn. I've really wanted to talk to you because of whatever your company is doing, I think is super cool. And that makes you stand apart as well, because you're setting an intention and following through on it, which is something that I think sets most people apart. Not everyone does that.
Yeah. It's been really interesting for me lately because, being new to the construction space, right? I go into I think about a lot of the events I used to go to in the past, chamber events, whatever it might be. And it's like, oh, good to see you again. Good to see you. Let me introduce you, all that sort of thing. And now it's definitely very different, right? I go in and I know maybe 1 or 2 people.
Right.
Which
that's
has
the best room.
I know. I was going to say, it's been so much fun.
Older, that's the best room.
It's been so much
people.
Yep. It's been awesome. Very, very different though. But definitely in those cases, right, having that list in advance, being able to do a little bit of research, those sort of things has been super helpful, right? Are there like the handful of people that I really, really, really want to meet for whatever reason, or that I think that based on the one person I do know there, that introduction somehow could be interesting as well, type of thing. So it's been a lot of fun.
I think that something that I've told, what I realize is that, networking is kind of, again, just a thing that comes fairly easy to me. Mm-hmm. But as I've started to work with clients, they've asked me, like, we talk about business development and we talk about sales and fishing in the right pools and things like that. And I like to talk to folks about what is a center of influence and what's a professional friend, right? Because those are different things. A center of influence is somebody that works in the same space as you, you're working with the same types of clients. They can refer business back and forth. And then there's like professional friends, right? Which are people that you go to events with that are also extremely important, right? But people that you could go to events with, and, you don't always doesn't always have to be somebody within your company or whatever, right? It could be somebody that's in a different company or you guys could, want to do business together, different things, but you go together, like at an event, you're automatically going to feel more comfortable. Yep. They're going to know potentially people you don't. You're going to know people they don't. You can talk about each other's businesses. Like that is, I would say, like it was a really valuable thing for me early on to find a couple women that I could go to places with, and men too, but men were usually bankers. Like, so women are just like, hi, so I would find people that were not in my company,
right,
and didn't necessarily need to refer me business or do anything like that, but were really fun to be with at an event and could talk about me, and I could speak about them. And really, I connected. Like, I feel very strongly, Amelia, about what you do, both in your previous role and your current, right? So like, it's very easy for me and you to go out, right? And me to say, oh my God, have you met Amelia? Like, she has this amazing offering, like, you know, and I think finding those people is really, makes things easier too.
And taking the time to remember what people do and being able to pitch it too. Because I know I'm at events sometimes and I'll be like, oh, well, I'll introduce them and they do this, this, and this. And like, there's been multiple times where they look at me and go, how do you remember that?
That's how you make a friend right there. You're like, wait, do you want to work with me?
Right.
I need a personal business development person.
Right.
Yes. I
mean, I could literally speak. I mean, I've known your company since like the inception pretty much, right?
Right.
I understand the value it adds. I understand the roots of it, you know, and I think that having that person that can kind of, I think the people that speak about you too, when you're not in the room, those people are awesome.
Yeah.
As long as they're speaking nicely.
I will say,
here's the story here. Go ahead.
Not everybody can like everybody, and like that's okay. And like if somebody, you know, I don't know. Like I try not to say negative. I think we're very different from a networking perspective, and that brings up a good point. Like Boston and New York are two completely different animals, right? Yeah. Like you can't screw somebody over in Boston and hang around for a long time. Because people will be like New York, you just go over 2 blocks and like it's a completely different.
Different Boston.
Yeah, Boston is big enough for networking to work, but small enough where you get to like. It's rare when I'm at an event that I meet someone and I'm like, wow, I have 0 mutual connections with you. In New York, that's easy to do. Granted, I don't go to New York, so I can't really speak on that. I should
have given up that
But also to that point, Stephen's point is that's like one of the biggest no-nos at an event is to talk crap about someone.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I think I've maybe heard one person do it and everyone else was kind of like, okay, like we're going to move on to the next person now. Like, uncomfortable, move on, say it behind closed doors.
Well, because then they're thinking, well, what does this person say about me when I'm not there, right? You know, like, so I agree with that. Well, so the other thing back to your question about like what, you know, when you were asking me about like, how did I make this shift? I think one of the things that I've learned, actually a lot of it from Amelia and Stephen and Taylor and all the guests that we have on this show is that networking to build your network is actually the more effective way of networking, right? As opposed to networking to get a sale, right? So if I build and so this is a fascinating thing because I keep running into people who are job seekers, and the problem that job seekers have is they're literally starting to network when they need something from other people, which is an awful time to start networking because now you're like every conversation you have is like, what do you I need something from you, not what can I give, what can I give back? And so it was really interesting because I was talking to somebody the other day who was a job seeker and she was a networker. And she said, the best conversations that I have are when I go to an event and I'm talking to somebody and I'm just listening to them and I hear and I go, oh, I could help you with that. And then you're basically not throwing yourself on them. Please give me a job. You're like, hey, I have a solution to your problem. So I think getting people out of that mode of I'm trying to sell and into that mode of just build your network and learn how to listen. There was this book that I read that said, listen, can you hear the doorbell ring? Like, do you hear that? Like when you hear that thing that somebody says, I have a solution for that, or I know somebody that can help with that, or I can solve that problem. And you're listening for those ways that you can help someone, I think just a different skill.
So how do you teach that though? Right. So I am constant, like Amelia kind of said, like, I'm like, I have a guy or girl, right? Like I am always, I believe that I don't feel entitled to anything. And I think that you try to help people and eventually that will come back around from like a karma perspective. But like, I've noticed that, as I'm trying to kind of helping the younger, generation come up and things like, and thinking about networking and talking to different folks, like that is it's like an ancient way to think of things. this idea that you're here to help somebody and that if you give enough, right, that it will come back. Like how do you teach that? Or how do you, I mean, I
think it's that's like the same question as how do you teach patience?
Have children.
Right. So maybe that's but I do think that's the correlation is you have to be in a mindset of patience because, and we've talked about this, like, because I've been in roles where it's such a high pressure sales situation. You almost have to make networking transactional in a way where it's like, can you bring me value? No. Okay. I don't have time. I have to move on. And it's a really like crappy way to feel about relationships. And when I had to do that, I struggled because I just felt very disingenuous when I was talking to people. But it's the same thing of, so you have to have patience to say, and a mentality of you never know.
Right.
Because, oh my God, you never know.
Right. Because like I talk to fractional CFOs are like, yeah, I get clients sometimes like I gave them my business card 5 years ago. I don't even remember where they met me. And they just call me out of the blue saying they need a fractional CFO and they liked me the one time that they met me, which is incredible. But, teaching that, hey, like you're probably going to give a lot before you have to almost teach them patience first, because that's really what it is it's the ability to wait and be like, hey, I know I'm probably not going to get an immediate return. So maybe like teach them the stock market too. Like, I don't know.
I blame Amazon. Everything's there in a day. And it's like,
oh my God, I'm actually going to go complain about an Amazon order because I was supposed to be delivered into Buffalo.
Oh my God. Between 4 and 4:30. And you're like, why isn't this here? And you're like,
I'm like, this was supposed to be here at 8 a.m. and you showed up at 1 p.m.
Yeah, I was having this conversation the other day. I was telling the story about it's from a couple months ago. I was driving somewhere with my son, and I don't know why I thought of this. He's 18, and I just said to him, I'm like, so what do you think that we used to do when like if we were going to meet someone and we were running late? What do you think we used to do? Like when we were running late to meet someone? And he's like, I have no idea. I said, nothing. You just showed up late and hope they were still there, right? Like people don't understand the way, like the world was different once upon a time.
Yeah. Oh, it's so different. On that same topic, Jeff, it's this no phones my parents told the story the other day about how I used to be friends with this girl and her parents were always late. But they weren't like 15 minutes late. They were like 2 hours late. So we would be having a play date and the parents would like show up literally like they're supposed to be there at 8, showed up at like 11:30. And like, I'm like, why would they like, did you have the name of the restaurant? Did you call the restaurant? And my dad's like, no, we just had to stay up and deal with a crying child who wanted to know where her parents were.
Well, and so but I think, this is the thing that we are sort of dealing with like every generation has had to deal with the fact that the generation before them, or the generation after them doesn't know what it used to be like. And so they don't necessarily have the same skills because they haven't had to develop them. And I think sometimes what happens is skills get lost. And so we have to retrain people, how, to your point, how to be patient, how to wait, how to, sort of have a long conversation. I mean, remember when we used to have, conversations by mail, like it doesn't even make sense anymore. And so we've lost that sort of sense of patience. I like that point, Amelia. All right. Well, I'm going to have to call it because
we always do this.
Oh my God, it's going so fast.
It goes so fast.
It goes so fast.
As promised. So Jessie, as we mentioned before we got on the call, we like to wrap up by having each person say just one cool event that you're going to be going to in the near future. So we'd love to hear from you. What's one cool event you've got coming up?
So I'm doing a ladies' dinner in a couple weeks, and we've started to kind of assemble what it is. But what I realized is my network as a business owner is what I need is much different than when I was in banking, right? Mm-hmm. And so I started a ladies that launched the week before COVID, and it did not go well. So we've started kind of the architecture of it, and I want to continue to kind of build on it. And so that will be one that I'll be involved in the architecture of, and I'm really excited about it. And that's in a couple weeks.
That's awesome. Excellent. Before I jump in with mine, Jessie, what is the best way for people to meet you? And I realize I forgot to create your banner, so you'll have to remind me what it is, and I will put it on the screen.
All right, it's thepinegroup.com. Carrier pigeon. My email address, which is Jessie@thepinegroup.com, or reach out to any of you guys. You can find me. Take a screenshot, give it to AI, tell it you want to find me on the internet, do deep research, and see if you actually want to meet me. That's a problem there. No, I'm joking.
Anyway, it's funny because I sort of took a break from networking events in June. We were going on vacation, a couple of graduations going on, whatever. And so I sort of took a break. And so my July, I was like, the beginning of July, I go into, I'm like, oh my God, there's like no meetings on my calendar. And so I just have been, my thing for the last couple of weeks is just every day, just send out 10 notes to people that I think I should probably talk to. And so my calendar is like so packed right now that I don't know when I'll go to the next event. But I will say one of our former guests just invited me because, she had introduced me to someone else. They're doing a podcast episode together. They invited me to the podcast, be an additional guest. And I'm like, well, this is really cool. So it's kind of I don't know if that's a networking event exactly, but it was the result of a networking event. So I'm going to share that one, and I will pass it over I'll let Amelia and Steven fight it.
I only have dinners or lunches and coffees this week. I have a low events, but next week I have like 2 or 3 events I'm going to. July and August.
Summertime. People are not around.
Yeah, July.
The events are in like Nantucket. Let's you and our charter a plane and go together.
Yeah, I have to look into it. I think you're going to it, the Chatham conference or whatever. It used to be the Nantucket one.
Oh yeah, we'll take that offline.
Yeah, I don't know. I
now I'm not at JP Morgan, so I can do whatever I want, right? But
I just saw it recently got rebranded in an organization I used to be a part of. That executive director now runs that event. And she invited me to it while I was at Insperity, but I couldn't get budget for that.
We'll stay at my aunt's house.
But one of my clients,
stay at Chatham Bars Inn. We'll stay at my aunt's house.
That's perfect.
One of my clients is actually on one of their panels, so I was looking at that. But talking about cool summer events, that's one that I'm obviously not going to. But if people have the money, they should go and check it out and request an invitation.
We can crash. We'll just go to like I said, we'll go to my aunt's house and we'll crash.
Perfect. I like that plan.
That's good to know.
All right, Steven, bring us home.
Yeah, Steven.
I think this Wednesday, ACG Portland, Maine's going to take a trip up north.
Going to that?
What's that? I am.
Going to that? I love Portland. I saw that. I was like, I want to go, but I couldn't.
Yeah, that's part of it, right? Portland is fun. I'm going to do a quick shout out though too, because I know Jen had mentioned. I think this is one she mentioned, the croquet after party in Newport. Mm-hmm. So that is next week on Thursday. I will be doing that as well.
Awesome.
That should be a lot of fun.
Oh, and there's a British consulate event, I think, next week, too, that I forgot about until right this minute. I don't know if anybody's going to be over at that.
Let me know.
That events that you could just go to, so that's really cool. Jessie, it has been so great to chat with you. What a great conversation. We really appreciate it. And so thanks for joining us.
Yes. Thank you, guys. You made it easy. Yeah. This was my first live thing ever, by the way.
Oh, well, you did great.
More.
I called Priya ahead of time. She was like, it's fun. They're cool. And I was like,
yeah. Oh, yeah. We make it easy.
I always have to tell people this is an easy conversation. Anyway, All right. We'll see everyone next week.
Sounds
good.
Bye.
Ciao.